Hey, what's going on, y'all? Brandon Jenkins here. We just watched Few Good Things, the film by Saba and C.T. Robert. Um, Guys, just watching this film, I got to just start with y'all. Like, what were those early conversations like? You said, I want to do this. Because I'm used to asking questions about music videos, asking questions about albums, seeing y'all partner up and make a full film. This is new territory for me. So I got to ask y'all, like, what were you guys thinking when you wanted to start putting this thing together?
So you started it, man. So I feel like you should start
Man,
this.
I feel like I've been wanting to shoot a short film for almost as long as I've been making music, or at least as long as I've been releasing music. It's always been such a cool format, and I watched some of the like great artists do it. So I always wanted to be a part and have one on my own. But what was cool about this is like I hit up Cam about this like before the album is even really like put together. So it was like from the beginning stages of the album, we had already been, having like preliminary talks about building a film around this album. So as we were building the album out in the world of the album, Cam is also working on the film and the story for the film. So he was getting all of the tracks, everything that I was working on. The second it was done, it would just go to him. And then we would
Fresh.
just stay on the phone and talk about it and get the story together and, what we visually want to represent and all of that.
So a lot of times, so you guys are sort of mapping this story out at the same time the music's coming together. This sounds like wildly collaborative. Had either of you ever done something like this where maybe Cam, you were working alongside someone creating music, and Saba, you're working at the same time making visuals, not just even visuals, a film, story.
Yeah, this was my first time doing anything like this. Sab's honestly like the only musician that I could say I have like a long-term creative relationship with at this point. Like, and it also has never been like to this degree where I feel like we were both contributing things that were like feeding into each side of the project, like, I'm very visual, but I'm not a musician. So it's like, I'm not really gonna tell Sab, like, maybe you should put this.
Yo, turn them hi-hats up, bro.
Yeah, and vice versa. Like Sab, like through our conversations, like we knew what we wanted to hit on, but he like really let me do my thing as far as like figuring it out. Like the visual aesthetic and the tone and the texture, and we just like kept on having conversations and aligning in that way. But no, this was definitely a first time experience for me.
Well, I guess thinking about how anything starts, whether it's music or film, there's like got to be an initial purpose, an initial idea that you want to like, build out from and embark on. So Saba, man, like what were some of the thoughts that were going in your head that's saying like, here's a story I want to tell, and here's what I want to communicate to the audience, both in music and in film.
Yeah. I think for me, it was one, a big thing that I was thinking about just in this whole process is that I wanted to step it up across the board. I wanted to take the music from A to B. I wanted to take a visual, like just everything up a level. And story wise, I just kind of, wanted to tell people where I was at that moment. I didn't look to really answer any of the questions, but I looked to pose questions. And throughout the album, it's like, what begins as a question, it's like by the end of it, you don't necessarily get the answer, but you get new questions to ask. And it kind of, between the film, the visual, the artwork, everything around it, like the story that's being told is kind of like a generational dialogue, which I didn't intend to originally create when I first started working on Few Good Things. And it wasn't until I made the intro track, the free samples, and I said something about my great grandmother on it. And then it shifted the whole album to kind of embody that. And it felt like that was a unique story that was important to me. I'm raised by my grandparents. And, this feeling of home is such a like fleeting thing. I'm in LA, I'm back in Chicago, I'm in LA, I'm in Chicago. So it was just like, with my life changing the way that it is, I kind of just wanted to update people on what was going on in my mind. And Few Good Things is like kind of where we kind of arrived.
Cam, for you, man, what is it like when you get that call? Or actually, how does those conversations start? Was it just that you guys were kicking it, or was it something that he hit you up with and started to tell you this concept? And then with that, how do you start to internalize a story about someone else's family, right? Like, and how do you make that come to life?
Yeah, well, I mean, so I I it's interesting. So I've had like an idea for just like broad strokes idea for a film that kind of plays with this idea of nostalgia and memories, but also like daydreaming, you know? Um, I feel like the two are very similar because it's all intangible. Like these are things that aren't, you
Mm.
can't touch them, right? But one is looking forward and one is looking backward, right? And so I've always wanted to like kind of create a story that like towed the line of like what that reality is and like that reflective space, you know, between the two, and like kind of not giving the answers like Sab said to like what is what, but leaving it open ended, you know. And then when Sab hit me and you know he started talking about like some of his memories and growing up, and I saw a lot of overlap with like my own experiences. um it just fit. It was like, this is, you filled in all the information that I was trying to make sense of. Like I've tried to make a short film on this topic, I failed. And you had a lot of the story beats already from your own experiences, and that opened up like other ways of thinking and my whole approach to like the story when like we kept on having these conversations, you know. So that I don't know, that's like a roundabout answer to that, but that's kind
No,
of like how came to it.
well, it sounds like it's a ton of conversation. And having just watched it, I think every viewer does this thing where they selfishly, and not even selfishly, I guess you're giving us your story and your ideas. You internalize it yourself, right? Like I was watching and the lines were blurring between, is this like, are those actors or those his family? Are these real memories or is this fantasy? Um, you know, and I think the dope thing about that is it becomes very personal for both of you, but it allows me to inject my own story in there. Like, and there were concepts that you guys made sure that were really intentional. Like you were talking about what it meant to have like stability and what the home symbolizes. And me as a person, it made me think of a family home, or I'd say just my grandmother's home that I feel like is a family home, and it's like the similar story. It's not in our family anymore, and it it made me pause. I stepped away from it and I started thinking about myself. I started thinking about just how important that item is in the culture. So I want to talk a lot about or talk a little bit about the idea of home for you, and like what that means like in the physical space, and what that means like what's the significance of that to you, standing here as you are today.
For me, I feel like, you know, home is where, that's an interesting question. I feel like, home is always a physical place, or like people like to associate it with a physical place, but I feel like home is more so the representation of like comfort. And yeah, I guess that's like
It's a
the
big
one
question.
word I would. Yeah, it's a big question just because like, you know, I view family just in general as not necessarily blood, but like the people who show up for you, who are around you, support you when you're going through things. And home is like an extension of that, where it's like I might have been born here, but like I could never visit this place because like my family doesn't live there anymore, for example, or like they're over here. So like home is very transitive, but I think having that sort of mental space of comfort and like a through line, that's like where I associate home with.
Saba, what about you?
For me, I would say my like my ideas around home have changed a lot. I feel like the older I get, um, a big part of it is like I spend more time in LA now than I do in Chicago. I'm still like back and forth a bit, but I spend more time here. But it's like anytime I go to Chicago, it's like I'm home, you know.
Yeah.
Uh, Whereas I live here, it's like literally my home. But it's like when I go home, is like when I feel home. So that just makes me think of home in a different way than what I was like always like growing up believing. Um, my family, like my grandparents that I was raised with, I've never moved in my life until I moved out of their crib. We had never moved. We were just right
Word.
there the whole time. Um, and the same with my great grandma. Like her house was there the whole time, you know, up until she passed away. But I think the what home kind of became was just it was safety. It was safety. It was like the home base. You know, when you playing tag or something when you were a kid, and you know you stand on this porch and it's like you can't tag me because I'm right here.
Yeah.
That's it's called home. You know what I'm saying? It's home. Um, so that's what I think the most important part about home. I think the relationships of family, or relationships in general, it don't even gotta be family, but I think where relationships are built, you know, that'll always have like a significant place in your existence. And when I think of home, there's so many experiences that I think of where home might not even be like a physical place, but maybe even a maybe even a mindset.
An
Um,
idea, right?
yeah, because when I it's at a point now when I go to Chicago, I don't even know where I'm staying. I just kind of land, but I feel
And
like
you,
I'm at home.
the whole
I
city's
know that
home.
I have, yeah, I know I got options. I can hit this friend, I can hit this friend, I can hit grandma, I can hit, you know what I'm saying? I can hit so many places where it's like these relationships and this idea of just this is where I can go and be safe and sleep on a couch or a bed or whatever the case, on the floor, whatever, you know, whatever the situation is. But that feeling is what makes it home or homely rather.
Man, in the film, in all the aspects of the film, the the narration, sort of like these, like this, the voice I'm hearing from your elder, the images I'm seeing, it made me think of what home is for me. Like when you showed those pictures, for me, that's a lot of my sense of family, is like what I see in pictures and wanting to see evidence that I come from somewhere, right? Or you did the voice notes, and I just started thinking about, maybe some people even in my own lineage that are aging, and I'm like, yo, you got them on, you got this audio though, and you're also sharing it with us, like, this allows them to live forever, and so that my sense of home is very wrapped up in my in a sense of nostalgia, my elders, and just the way you all were sort of weaving this through the media that you created made me think of, man, home is something that maybe I can kind of put my hands on. Maybe it is a picture, or maybe it is a voice note or a phone call. But I'm also curious what challenges you encountered trying to capture home, because it's a big idea. We're trying to figure it out now. How did you sort of bottle this idea, both of you, and put it into something that we could listen to and visualize? And were there things that you felt like maybe you couldn't get to, whether it was trying to land on some archival stuff, or um, trying to get someone to maybe hash out or talk about a memory that maybe they don't want to talk about?
Yeah, I think that's what to me that's an easy question because I asked my granddad to be a part of this and he originally said no. Uh, so that you know what I'm saying? It's like as you know, our thing, I feel like as people really is always like, nah, we out the way, we low key, we not trying to be in the spotlight. You know, I'm
Hmm.
tucked, I'm over here and my grandparents are no different than that. Like I'm not surprised because it's like that's how I was, that's how I am, you know what I'm saying? And there's a lot of stuff going on. I'm always like, I'm over here, I come through, I say what's up, but I'm gone. You know what I'm saying? So I asked my granddad to be the face of this campaign and be the face of this album. And he was like, "Nah, man, I don't want people looking at me." So that was the initial challenge was I knew how important it would be for him to be the face. Like, and me and Cam even had talks about like, well, we could just try to make it like a default, like general older man. And then it's just like, but it's not the same. You know what I'm saying? It don't hit the same. You can't photograph that the same way. It's a random person. Um, and I had asked him maybe like 3 times, and I feel like on the third one he said he would be down to do it. And to me, it was important to capture him in front of his mom's house, um, to kind of further show that generational dialogue. Like it's like my granddad is 80 years old and he's in front, like, you know what I'm saying? He's in front of his mom's house. Like this is still, he's still like a little boy to his mom. You know what I'm saying? Like it's like
Yeah.
it's that dialogue. So I think that was the first challenge that I would say I ran into. Um, I think a challenge. This was a challenge in the album, and I think working on the film. But it's like knowing which stories to share. Um,
Yeah.
My granddad, like I feel like most people, grandparents, it's like he's just, you know, it's 80 years of stories that he has to share. And when we were talking, it's pretty open-ended. We would be like, hey granddad, what happened this day? You know, what was this like? And then, you know, we gotta end up somewhere
Just
else. You
opens
know, we
up.
always end up somewhere else. Like, all right, well, the world of granddad, this is what it. So I think piecing it together was definitely you know, so we had so much audio and so many interviews and so much of just to really pick from. So I think that when I think of the challenges of it, to make it connect which beats we use and which songs we match up with which vocal, like things like that. I don't know. Those are probably two that I could say. I think three, and this will be the last one. Cam, you could probably go into more specifics about like what the challenges of the film were, considering that you had to deal with most of them. But the third one that was a challenge for me is how to make something really personal, but not be overbearing or over intruding over, like how to have clear boundary when it comes to, putting my own family on this type of stage and my own life and my own neighborhood and my own, with things like that. It's like, just in terms of safety, I don't want everything to be so public, but it's such a like important story. I feel like for me and for us to share. That's like we had to like really be low key about locations, about certain images, things like that. So that was just, everything was made with caution, as it pertains to just public information. So that was
yeah.
I think for me, well, okay, so I ended up editing this just because I'm a control freak, first off. But from that aspect, I found that, like we had a script, we storyboarded, like we planned it to the T, but when you're sitting down in front of the computer, a lot of shit you realize on paper does not work in an actual film, And so the first, I did like, I think 79 different edits of the film over like 3.5 months, which is kind of crazy.
Okay.
Yeah, it's stupid.
That's like if we're counting just like work days, let's take an edit a day, dog. Like
Yeah,
maybe taking weekends off.
it took like the month to get like the full thing laid out, but then it was just like that doesn't work because it started off feeling too preachy and documentary, like like we did I guess the typical documentary opening where you show the environment and you have like little audio clips coming in and out. And I was like, damn, I feel like I'm sitting in school right now. Like I want to say something, but I don't want to say it like this. And then the second version, at this point I was combating with if we should do like more quick cuts because it's definitely like a slow burn, but I think it's intentional that it's a slow burn. But like there was a version with a hella quick cuts and like all this stuff, and I was like, this feels too music video-y, and like I feel like people are not gonna listen to like what's actually being said, and so that's like where I figured out I guess like the use of the archival, like the radio clips and stuff, like through the radio, where it feels like it's in the world rather than like you're being talked to like directly. And it's like more so Sam as a character is learning about this in the background versus the audience, which is, I don't know, it's kind of meta, but that I found ended up being the balance. But that took a lot of time to get to. So that was definitely like, I think, the most difficult thing. Everything else kind of played out because I think we just had a great community and squad of people that were invested in the project, like I couldn't have asked. This is my first short film. I consider it my first short film, and like I couldn't have asked for a better crew of people, honestly. Like we went to Chicago working with people we never worked with before, and they just showed up like on days we weren't even supposed to have shoots. I'm like, hey, I really think we need to go get like this B-roll. And they were just like, yep, go take a camera. We'll give you an AC. Like you just go out and do it, and on every aspect, it was like that, whether it's the stylist, whether it's the sound engineer, whether it's the DP that flies out like for a week of his time, like we're not making money off like this film. Like this film is supplemental to everything else. It's for the love. And everyone was just like all in. And if we didn't have that, then it just would have been a different project, But the ease of that made thinking about creative and figuring out all of these more like, I guess, ethereal aspects of filmmaking a lot more easier, because I didn't have to worry about, man, we just don't have the resources. The resources, everyone pitched in, essentially.
Well, it comes through in a way, because even when you're talking about the presentation of it, you guys would do this thing where you would it's like just watching it, you'd present this world and like a corner of this world of the family, whether it's like, they're around the table, you're going through photos. And it felt like that feeling when you are chilling, you're having a good time at your cousin's house and everyone's, all right, it's time to go. And you're like, damn, like you trying to chill a little bit more, and it felt like that. And then you guys would sometimes return to a scene or return to a thought, but it felt like that sprawling nature, like you said, of family, where you sit down and you go there for a holiday, you go there to hang out. And it just evolves into all these things. You could end up having deep conversations, you could have fun conversations. But at the end, it's like no one wants to get in the car and leave because you just want to stay. And somehow y'all bottled that up and made it into music and a film in a way that it's your story. But I'd be lying if I said I didn't feel this like connect, if it didn't feel like mine, And we're not from the same place. We're not of the same family, but you made it handheld for the viewer. So I think my next
question.
That was important. Yeah. I mean,
sorry to cut you off, but yeah, I just going back to what Sab said before about we wanted it to be like open more questions up. Like this is supposed to, at the top of the deck that we made, we wrote, this is more so resolution through self-exploration. And so like you're just learning more about yourself, but that doesn't mean you have all the answers. And that's fine, because like you never do. So like, why does this story have to be so concise? And that, again, it opens it up to other people seeing themselves or aspects of themselves, like you said.
Well, it's like, it's not the destination. It's just that process of it, right? That what you gain along the way. Saba, for you, this process of making a full film, right? Something that you said you had your eyes on, from when you first started to even make music. What did you learn about it? And how did it sort of, not learn about it, how do I want to say this? How did it change your normal way of creating, right? Because you're normally like creating through music, and now you have this new medium, you smoked it, and now it's like, how does this alter the way you see what you do,
I think for me, it's just like, obviously I love music, but that's just one form of art, and I think with music, and especially the music that we make, it is so visual. So it's been a big thing of mine to try to push that. Like when I'm writing lyrics, it's like be as descriptive as possible, like set the scene. And it's like I feel like it translates easy into looking at, the exact picture because I just described it. But for me, it's like just kind of continuing to remind myself that it's like there's no wall there. Like there's no ceiling for what we can do, what we can accomplish. It's like we just shot a fucking short film. Like that's crazy to me. Like that's crazy to me that we did this. But it's like it shouldn't be crazy. It's like of course we did it. Like we wanted to do it. So for me, it's like when I think of my music and when I think of just myself in general, it's like there's with this rollout and with this album process, it's kind of just reminding me like, all you need is the preparation and the time to make it happen. But it's like there's no idea that's too crazy that it can't happen. So I like to like use this as an opportunity to continue to remind myself that it's like shoot for the fucking stars. And I don't say
Yeah.
if you fall, you land on the moon, but if you give yourself an what it is, shoot for the stars. If you fall, you land on the cloud. Not that. Shoot for the
Shoot for,
stars. If
and
you
if you
give
miss, you're
yourself
amongst the. Oh wait, shoot for the sky, and if you miss, you're amongst the stars.
whatever it is, what I'm saying is shoot for the stars, give yourself enough time, and you'll get to the motherfuckers.
Go to the he said shoot for the stars and go to the stars.
Right. That's what this process has reminded me. It's just like nothing is beyond reach.
I mean, look, like watch it through wildly like impressive, and then I always think too, just on this side, like, yo, man, these fools made this in the pandemic, and found a way to bottle up a feeling that a lot of us are missing too. A lot of us are disconnected from our people physically. You're telling stories that are community based, stories that are based in the culture, and I think it's at a time where everyone seems like they're, not everyone, but people might be trying to fill that void with other things. And you're like, nah, man, like here's wholesome food, here's something to actually digest, and this is what you need. I'm telling you, man, I'd be lying if it didn't make me like look at like how often I'm making phone calls. Maybe I need to make some more phone calls, some more. Maybe I need to like stretch myself and make that visit. It it's an incredible like totem to remind you like, what's valuable and what's important, and not just in this moment. You're showing lineage, right? And it makes you think about the future. It's you took on a task that's very difficult. So I say all that to say, how has this changed both of you? How has this changed your idea of family? How is there something you went into thinking, and here you are on the tail end of it, and you're sharing it with the world now, which will change it as well. But in this moment, how is this? Where are you at in your idea of that?
Well, for me, it's the idea behind even attacking something like this goes into just the growth of the last few years and where I was and where I am now. I lost a lot of people, that are close to me. I lost family, you know what I'm saying? Like, and for me, it's the unfortunate part about grieving, but it somehow always brings you closer to your people, and sometimes you realize people that you didn't even know were your people are your people. You know what I'm saying? The way like the support system will really show out to really help you in that moment. And I think it's not that we don't want to talk to our people, it's that life moves quick
Very
and you
fast.
don't even realize that it's been 3 years since you talked to your cousin. You know what I'm saying? And especially in our case where it's like we are on the more visible side career wise. So it's like I just kind of had to recognize it's like when I don't make the call isn't gonna be made. Cause and it's not, it's not anything that it's not a personal thing, but it's just like they're on the outside looking at what we're up to. And it's like, no, they're probably busy. And the reality of it is they're probably right. So it's like for us to have that relationship and for us to continue our connection, like how it was with kids and shit, it's like I gotta pick up the phone. And that's something that, the last few years of my life have kind of showed me. It's like it's real easy for people to take things personal and then just kind of fall back,
Yeah.
fall back. Like, nah, you're busy. That's my busy cousin, or that's my busy friend, or anything like that. And just man, picking up that phone, even if it's for 5 minutes, it just reminds people that they are cared for and that they are still a part of your story. Because it's easy for people to get in their heads when they see you visible and so busy. They see you moving. It's easy for people to question their place in your life when they see you surrounded by new people or new endeavors and things like that. So For me, I think I just recognized how some of my relationships were beginning to trend, and I didn't like it. Uh, so it's like just, reminding myself to pick up the phone, get those stories, pick up the phone and say, what's up? Like, you don't even got to be a 3 hour conversation. Like, it'll make it easier because every time you talk to somebody, you don't got to catch up. So, it don't got to be such a moment. It's just like you check in, and then you go on about your day. So that's something that, it'd be it'd be almost hypocritical to make this film and not adapt some type of new system where I'm actually holding myself to the messaging that I put out. So I feel like, it's a life project. It's like, obviously it's an album, it's a film, but it's like, for me, it's like, now I gotta hold myself to this. I gotta keep getting these stories, not just from my grandparents, but from the homies, from my friends, from, all of these people in the industry. It's like so much knowledge and just experience to be shared. And I feel like that's what one of the goals was for myself with doing this entire project.
It's a life project
Yeah.
is real heavy language, man. That's real.
Mhm. For me, I think, like my family is kind of all spread out. And I feel like when my grandparents passed away, there's always complications that surround it, financially, like just family stuff happens, and I think working on this just made me want to, I guess, ask more questions of my family and try and connect to, like, why are these issues within our family? Why was it when granddad passed away that all this stuff flared up? Like, these are things that go back 20 years before I was even existed. But like, I can try and understand it, and I can try and, like, just be younger generation. That's not my problem. Like, oh, they just don't get along. But now it's like I'm more, I guess, I'm trying to figure out how to articulate it. I feel like I'm the urge and the need to, like, actually understand the intricacies of, like, familial relationships. Like, that's kind of like a monkey on my back now. Like, I've been writing um, some ideas for, like, other, like, sort of creative pursuits, and, like, I'm seeing, like, that is something that I'd, like, just naturally gravitate to, like, understanding um these interpersonal relationships, and the history behind it, beyond just my own personal experiences. Like, I feel like you live life a lot of times and you are just self-centered in how you view relationships. But I think with this film, just seeing, like, how Sab, was able to have these conversations, like, with his grandparents and his grandfather, um, it made me, like, want to actually do that in my own regard. Unfortunately, my grandparents are no longer alive, no longer here, but it's made me want to be proactive for the people who are here to, like, learn more about their stories, because that's something I just never really took into consideration. So
Yeah, I've said it a few times, just hearing the audio of it and thinking about you guys have the gift to be able to create images around it and create music around it. But even just the photos and the audio made me think, like, man, those are within reach for me. And when you have them, you got them and you can share them, or you can keep them. But to be able to have them, like, distilled somewhere is something I think has made me think a lot about what legacy is and what memory is, and the ability to share these things. And especially in the Black community, there's ideas of what it means to have lineage or family heirlooms, right? And there's the monetary ones and things like that that have a value to X, Y, and Z. But the ones that's just the ones that just mean something to us, you know what I mean? Like, I got an aunt Eleanor. I never met her. She died before I was born, but her name still rings on because She was just that ill. And it's like, all right, how do I do that in this film? Like, man, it was the thing, you know, it's like it makes you want to rush and start. It makes you want to make sure you have these things, man. So I guess my final question for you all is what do you think is the most important trait in a family? Not the most important trait. What do you think? Yeah, what do you think is like the most important trait for a family? Like, you know, what are things that are not that word or idea that's so important?
Most important
I
trait for a family. Sheesh.
Again, I kind of answered this earlier, but I think it's just showing up for your people, you know, however you can, however that looks like, and actually being proactive with it, you know. There are people in my life, you know, 10 years ago, we were super close and you drift away sometimes, and that's just how life goes. But, you know, when I need them, they show up, you know, like I could not talk to someone for years and then, you know, hear something about them, call them up, and it's like it never changed, you know. And I think that's sort of, I guess, I don't know the word. I guess that stability in knowing that that person is grounded there for you is like really what I associate with family, you know. My aunt, she I moved in with her 2016 when I moved to New York. And you know, fresh out of college, like I'm trying to just be on the move, blah blah blah, you know. And I remember this is gonna paint me horribly, but I forgot her birthday when I was there, and I felt she felt so bad and hurt, and then she like just sat me down and we had a really good conversation. She said that the thing you do everything out of love or hate, and that's like the North Star for everything. And so like, yo, like she knew I didn't do it on purpose and I was just being neglectful. But what I gained from that was like just recognizing like, okay, what am I going to put time and thought into? Like,
Damn.
if this is someone I care about, then I need to show it in some capacity. I know that's important to them. So I need to put that energy forth. And so, yeah, I don't know. That's like an open-ended answer, but yeah, I feel
It's a
like
great
that.
answer.
What you described was reliability, you know,
Yeah,
yeah.
it makes all the difference, you know. Like I don't, you know, memories are just an accumulation of uh, or relationships, I should say, are just an accumulation of memories. You know, when it's all boiled down to it, and so like, are you going to keep on investing in that, or are you going to just like let it fade away and not invest it in by like you don't have to talk to someone every single day, but like when it really counts, are you going to be there? You know, and
Yeah.
that's from that experience. That's like kind of like what I picked up on, and how I view what family is.
Mm.
That's pretty great. Your auntie was dropping bars, bro.
Yeah, she's opened me up like crazy. Jennifer Chase, love it.
What I would say, and I also agree with everything he just said, but I would say, and I would say one of the most important. I think it's hard for me to say it's the most important, but one of the most important things that I feel like I realized in the last few years, you know, I feel like this was bucket list day. So maybe 2015, 2016, it was becoming really important to me to like learn more about where we come from. And I feel like so much of, you know, my non-Black friends, there's so much self-awareness and identity that you get from just the culture of knowing where your people are from.
Yeah.
And that's something that is so heartbreaking that just we will never have.
I
We'll
have this
never
convo
have.
often. Yeah.
And it's like it's really heartbreaking at times. But I think in this process, I learned that, well, we do still have the culture of our own families. You know, we got stories from grandma, we got stories from where they came from, granddad from Texas, grandma from North Carolina. You know what I'm saying? We got stories that date back and they still are important to our own identity. So I think for me, it's trying to learn the culture of, you know, my own family. You know, obviously it's not going to give me my great nothing like that. You know, that's something that we won't get. I might never know the specific tribe or anything like that, but I still have these stories. You know what I'm saying? My grandfather coming to Chicago when he was 10 years old, and my great grandma coming to Chicago in 51, and all of it, you know what I'm saying? Like, where it's like that still has so much to do with my own identity. You know what I'm saying? My grandma from Pink Hill,
100%.
North Carolina, and I never been to Pink Hill. I've never been to really North Carolina outside of performing, but it's like that's like a big uh, goal of mine is just to build that understanding regardless of how far it goes back. It might go back one generation. I could be just trying to understand my mom or my dad or something like that. Like it doesn't have to be to the 1700s, but you'll still learn and understand the culture of your family and be able to instill that in generations to come. One of the covers on the for the single for Come My Way, that's my little cousin. And just I feel like, you know, my cousin Walt passed in 2017, but this little kid reminds me so much of Walt. And it's just like I be in all kicking it with him because I'm like, man, this is a child. This man is 8. You know what I'm saying? Like this is an 8-year-old. But he just, you know, he got the culture of the family is so instilled in him and who he will become that it's like I don't gotta worry about it. I'm like he gonna understand where he come from. He gonna understand the lineage. He gonna understand the legacy of everybody that came before him. And it's just, you know, it's saying that to say that's a series of important traits that, you know, are in a family. In this case, it's more specific to not just a family, but a Black family.
Yeah.
Which I think on this album, I really wanted to drive that point, like Black family, you know, like we doing, you know, we talking to them, we talking to us, we're not talking to y'all right now. Y'all can relate. That's great.
Come peep it, but
Yeah. Come peep it. You know what I'm saying? It's tale. It's word of mouth. It's culture. It's all of that. But this is specifically what we talking about.
I mean, what
I
you're
just want
talking
to
about
piggy.
is, oh, go ahead. Go
Oh
ahead.
no. I was just saying, I just want to piggyback on you talking about place and knowing that history, even if it doesn't go back thousands of years of like what we actually know, like that search for that or understanding or being able to grasp onto something is so important to us. I was having a conversation with one of my homies the other day. And yeah, we were talking about like, you know, neighborhood of Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn, how it's changed so crazy. There was a spot called Voodoo Lounge that used to be like a go-to night spot and it got shut down. And that was like such a huge loss for the neighborhood. Even if it is just a little bar that's been there for like 20 years or whatever, it's a loss because like, yo, those little things are so important. Like that is our history. We're building our history from a
Yes.
very recent point in time. And Sab, I connect this to like how you were talking about your grandmother's house, great grandmother's house, how you feel it's weird for you to go past that house knowing all the memories and all the stories that are within it, but it's locked up, boarded up for the past 10 years, you know, and it's just
Right.
out of reach, you know, like, and, you know, that goes into gentrification and like why gentrification is bad, yada, yada, yada. But I don't know. I just think that's an important point. Like that is important, you know? And a lot of times I feel like that isn't brought up in conversation, especially in this sphere of you know, art, you know, like specifically, like people don't talk about how much weight all that stuff has, you know.
But you
And it's
feel
all
it,
tied
man.
together. Yeah.
You feel it in everything that you guys have created, because even that, like you find this roadblock, right? Like that roadblock might be going back 1700 years. You're like, oh, I can't get there, right? But or even looking at, a family home and being like, this is us, and there's something in there, and then to not stop, right? Like to not let that be the roadblock, to say, I'm still going to create legacy, I'm still going to create heirlooms, I'm going to tell the history from what I know and go forward, and to find the best way to distill that. Like in that time, it might have been a home, but then you write some challenges and now you don't have the home. All right, so what's the new medium? All right. Or like if maybe it was Voodoo Lounge, this other medium is an album and a film. Like the idea of not stopping, I think, and resilience is another aspect of family, right? The idea of a family continuing is resilience. You think about all the challenges that people behind you have faced. Like I was tripping one day thinking like, how many people had to just like stay alive just for me to be here, and like I never meet them. Like that's just like it's kind of trippy. But there's something, I got like some eye or jawline from someone I'll never meet, right? And like some trait that I got, you know, decisions were made before I got here. And what you guys were talking about like picking up the phone and calling and being present for people, or making sure you capture these stories. I think for both of you, that's the call. That's the call, right? The great call, like of responsibility. You have the right to be here, right? But the other call is responsibility. And you both have like answered that call. You know what I mean? And then when you do it right and you share it, it, I'm hoping it makes people feel how I feel, where you're like, yo, am I answering the call? It might be time for me to figure out what that is for me. And it might just be placing a phone call. It might be collecting these images in archives, or trying to, preserve a house or go back as far as you can. But a lot of it's really about tomorrow. It's like, what are you going to bring to keep this thing alive, to keep this idea of family? It could be friendship, or, like you said, our spot that we lost. But it's like, all right, someone's gonna make another one and we're gonna go fill that up and be there too. You guys are playing with some real heavy stuff, but you made it really handheld and easy for people to wrap their arms around it. I think you guys are floating a lot of ideas that are very warm, but also heady. And yeah, man, you floated through this. Like it's a great film. Like I hope y'all know that. Like it's probably weird because y'all made it and you're gonna share and you're sharing with everyone like tonight. But like, it's fire.
I appreciate
Well, that was also a note.
Yeah.
We did want to make something fire. So.
Yeah, nah, everything would be pointless if it wasn't,
Exactly.
It's gotta hit.
Yeah, I just if do becomes a meme or something, that would make me so happy. That one transition, I wanted to happen so bad. Bro. I love it.
Is there before we I'll like say something to sign off, they can kind of cut this part in, but is there anything that I didn't bring up that you guys want to make sure that any of the audience viewing this, many people going out listening to the album, that they walk away with this, something that maybe is the conversation that you guys have been having?
Yeah, I feel like we talked about all of that shit.
I'm good.
All right, well, look, man, Saba, Kim, first and foremost, congratulations. Like doing this completing any art is not easy. And y'all did it with like, immeasurable odds, I'm sure. Y'all made something that again is fire. So congratulations. Thank y'all for letting me sit here and chop it up with y'all. And thank y'all for making art that I'm telling you, man, it's like it's got me thinking. Like I spent time on my pop's Facebook page. Like, yo, what's he been up to? How's he moving? How is he living? Like, so yeah, that's all I got for y'all. Thank y'all.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for taking the time.